Whoa, he's outdoors.
Oh yeah, baby. Let's go. Bringing it to nature, you know?
Ooh, oh, we gotta go. We gotta see more.
Oh, you guys got a good scenery too, though, if I do say so myself.
I know, I know. I knew you'd love it. I feel like should we switch the lights?
Yeah, maybe try to change the lights.
Here we go. Hey, how we doing, guys?
Jesse, what's up, man?
Hey, it's good to see
How's
you
it
guys.
going?
Going great.
Awesome, awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
it
so
looks
I
beautiful out where you
oh
are.
man, it's about time. I'll tell you, it's like the humidity's finally passed and it's
Uh-huh.
it's finally like, in the like mid to high 60s,
That's
and
what I'm
it's
talking
it's
about.
not humid, and it's just, yeah, dude, it's like, why wouldn't
Give
you
me
want to
some
be
of that.
outside?
Yeah,
Heck
it's
yeah.
been in the 70s here, and it's been 90s like for so long that it's just like, okay,
For sure.
as much outdoors as possible. Let's make it happen. Well, nice to
Yeah,
meet you,
for sure.
Chad. And then
Absolutely, man. So
uh
we got Hayden
I'm
and
Nick.
Nick are with
I'm
us.
Hayden.
hey Nick, hey Hayden. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, I think
Me
Megan
too,
should
man.
be joining us. Nick, did you talk to Megan at all? She should be with us,
I,
I think.
I talked to her yesterday. I didn't hear back from her today.
Okay. Yeah, we can wait a couple of minutes for her to come on. Yeah. Where are you located, Jesse? Where are you out of? Are you Pennsylvania?
Actually, currently I'm in Indiana.
Oh,
And
Indiana. Okay.
then yeah, I'm in the process of relocating to Chicago, the Chicago
Yeah,
area. But
gotcha.
yeah, right now I'm out nature area. So
There you
small
go.
town right now. So it's kind of
For sure.
nice.
That's awesome. That's
Mm,
great.
yeah.
I love
And
that.
you guys are in
So
where?
yeah, so our practice is in Salisbury,
Mhm.
Massachusetts, and Megan, she has a few studios, but her main one is in Amesbury, and then she's got a couple of other ones. And I think when you come up, you'll be in Amesbury. I think that's the plan as of right now.
That's what I recall. Hey Megan, nice to
Yes.
see you.
Oh, Jesse, how are you?
This is going to be a party
Oh, it is.
podcast.
Big
I'm kind
time.
of glad we did a Zoom call. It just two. If we had like five people in the same room, like trying to get on one screen, I think it would be a little. We'd be comfortable. That's for sure.
Hey Robin, nice to
Megan
see
will
you.
be cool with that though.
You know how I feel about Megan in the middle.
Yep, that's right. She's
Togetherness.
always in the middle. Always in the middle. But no, I think this is great. I think so. This our intent with this whole like podcast slash Zoom, and I'll record. This is recording right now, so
Oh, great.
I'll extract the audio as well. So I would like to be able to use this time to kind of promote this workshop that we got coming up next month, as well as kind of talk about what people may expect when they come to a workshop like this, as well as a little bit about your background, because I know you've done a lot in terms of like written a few books and everything else. So and this is your world. So
Yeah,
we kind of like want to learn a little bit more about you, what kind of got you into breath work, and how it's impacted you and how it can help other people that might be going through similar situations as you went through. So I don't know.
absolutely.
Megan, do you have anything else that you'd like to add to that? Like, is
Chad, you nailed it.
all right,
All
cool.
yeah.
He's so good at this now.
Oh
I,
man, I'll
I
tell
taught
you,
him so well.
I don't even need to treat patients anymore. This is why I don't treat patients anymore, because this is what I do.
The elephant in the room is obviously I have bigger muscles than Chad, but
Yes,
it
Robin.
embarrasses him, so I'm going to be quiet on this Zoom.
I got a filter. I got a filter on mine. I got a filter on my screen. Don't be fooled.
Nice. I gotta get that filter after the show.
Yeah. I'll hook you up. So yeah, Jesse, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, I know the language of breath is the book that we're currently reading, and I know that's kind of like more or less the blueprint as to the course that we'll be hosting next month. So kind of give us a little background about you and kind of how it kind of came to be with the language of breath and so forth.
Yeah, so the language of breath is my philosophy of breath work. It's the basic philosophy of breath work and looking at what the human being actually is that I teach when I certify breath workers, whenever I train clients, whenever I do workshops like this. And it challenges a person to see themselves maybe in a different way and learn how to interact with themselves in a more effective way. And it's a really a long time coming. It's something that, I wish would have existed whenever I really needed it when I was younger. And I think a lot of us go through times, when we're younger and we're trying to figure things out. And a little bit about my background is that I am two things. I am an extreme extrovert. So I will hug probably all of you more, than you like. Who knows? But the thing
Megan's
is,
jam.
I'm a very extroverted person, but my whole life I've always suffered from extreme social anxiety too. So this thing that really brings me the most happiness and joy in life was always the thing that caused me to have the most anxiety. And I think most people can relate to my plight in one way or another. There's enormous amount of things that cause us anxiety and stress. And the sad thing is most of us don't understand what anxiety is. We don't understand what the stress response really is and what it's trying to do. And that was how I was when I was, teenager years and young adult life. And I did what I think a lot of us do, and maybe, hopefully not as many people do anymore. I don't know, but I tried to quiet that stuff down as best as I could, and I used all of the wrong things. Right, so drugs, alcohol, I threw everything at it, trying to get it to shut up, and that stuff really works for a while, right? So just for a while, but it actually, there's a reason why people do it, and it does quiet a lot of these things down, and it helps you to dissociate from the way you actually feel. And this is something that I struggled with for most of my 20s until sort of the end of my 20s, whenever I really started to say, okay, I've got to figure this thing out. And this was a time where I started trying to do some of these things. I went back to grad school. So this is a time whenever I went to become an English professor, and my roommate was heavy into martial arts, big into the gym and stuff like that. And I was so not that at the time. And he said, "Hey, why don't you get your gear and we'll go to the gym, we'll work out." And I was almost just really offended at the idea. I was like, people do that for fun? Like, and so, I had to borrow his shoes actually, because all I had was like street shoes to go work out at the gym. But over time I was like, okay, I started to see, all right, when I really engage with this thing that I am, there is a benefit. There's something that comes from that. So I got into working out. I got into exercise and trying to eat better and things like that. And even though they sucked at first, right? I was like, okay, I can see there's something here. But it really, I started as an English professor, and in my first few years, I was really trying to get into something that would help me with that social anxiety, just the anxiety, just in general, the stress that I just felt throughout the day. And a friend of mine mentioned, well, meditation is supposed to be good for this. So I got to try to get into meditation. And I'll never forget my first session. I closed my eyes and I tried to meditate for as long as I could. And 5 seconds later, I opened my eyes and I realized, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought it was. And, I started just sort of researching ways to get better at meditation. And this is how I stumbled upon breath work. And I noticed a much faster, more reliable method of learning to sort of, and I didn't fully understand what I was, or I don't think most humans understand what we are. We have so many metaphors that we'll get to that in a minute. But I started to notice, wow, there's really something to this. And it's not just a bunch of woo-woo nonsense that which is what I felt like it was at first, to be honest. And so I started practicing a lot of different styles. When I said English professor, a lot of people just turned off, I'm sure. But for those of you who are still listening, I appreciate it, first of all. And just so you know, I did teach literature and those types of things, the poetry and all that. But my primary focus is research and rhetoric. So I've always been the kind of person who would get really interested in something and just, I just had to find out everything I could about it. And then that was never enough. I always had to tell everybody about it. And my friends, were always annoyed at, it's like, okay, Jesse, what if I was into something? I was like, I just need to tell you all about this sort of thing. So an English professor in research and rhetoric was perfect for me. And I did this with breath work. And I started to notice that I didn't realize just how much anxiety and stress I was walking around with. You know, there was a certain level of like, no, this is what it's like to be relaxed. This is how I am when I'm chill. And as I continued practicing, as I continued to learn more and practice more, experience more, I started to realize, wow, even whenever I thought I was relaxed, I was stressed out of my mind. And I didn't understand what was really going on, but I started to understand, okay, we can start to interface with this process. We can start to take active steps to work with these things that have driven humans crazy since humans have been humans. And I also trained under a lot of, you know, the big gurus and these things like that. Almost joined a few cults. I think I did join a few cults to be you know, there's a lot of, in the world of breathwork, there's a lot of messaging out there. And, you know, I had to go to train, and, you know, there'd be times whenever, you know, I'd have to go vegan for a while, or I would have to do, you know, and nothing against that, but that's just not my jam. But the thing is, I started to notice there were patterns that would emerge. And I was very fortunate that I started to make friends with people who were scientists who were interested in this sort of thing too. And one of my first mentors, a man by the name of Dr. Otto Music, he was actually one of the first neuroscientists. He's still a neuroscientist, still does an enormous amount of research. I didn't realize at the time that the field of neuroscience is actually somewhat of a young field. But he became a big mentor of mine, and I would just nerd out with this guy for hours and just really try to figure out what's going on. And I wrote my first book in 2020. As a professor, after you get enough years and they're like, okay, he's all right. They have these things called sabbaticals where, you know, you get paid to go do something you enjoy, hopefully. And so I wrote my first book, A Practical Guide to Breathwork, in 2020. And the year that we were all afraid to breathe, that was the year I'm like, guys, we gotta breathe. And it did, much to my surprise, it just blew up. It was just everywhere. Very, very well-received book. And so what happened was, even in that book, I was developing, I didn't realize it at the time, I was developing the language of breath philosophy. And if you read that book, I go over how I really do believe the sense of interoception is kind of the secret to it. And I'm going to talk about what that means in a second. Hey, and then this book came out. This next book came out not too long ago. This is the book. That's right. The Language of Breath. I always love to see somebody holding my book. Thank you so much for that. So what happened was, is I kept on working with clients, and I started to notice things, patterns develop. And as I was researching, I came across the work of Dr. Cynthia Price, who is one of my research heroes as well. And I was very fortunate to get to train with her. And she does an enormous amount of work just on the sense of interoception. And let me unpack what that is. We have only had this word for a number of decades, but basically what it means is the sense of internal awareness, very simply put. So your ability to have internal awareness, to really focus your awareness in a specific place, is actually a skill that most of us, and especially myself in my earlier years, oftentimes we're too afraid to feel how we feel. And this was sort of mind-blowing. And there's an enormous amount of there's decades of like the best research that you could possibly have, the highest quality research that just shows that simply if you can get a person to become more aware of how they feel, simply having that felt sense, you get these amazing changes. And I started to think, you know, at the beginning of my change of my life, at the beginning of my health and wellness, and I think a lot of, and I would imagine if you work with clients, you see this as well. A person will have this desire to change their life for the better, and then they engage with their felt sense, and they don't do it necessarily on purpose, but hey, this is, I started lifting weights. I started getting into the gym and doing that sort of thing. What do? You put your, yeah, and of course the first book I got was the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. It was actually a gag gift from my roommate. He's like, now that you're going to go to the gym, you might as well get huge, right? Anyway, but the idea is, you put your focus and your awareness in the place where you're using you're focusing on the muscle that you're using or something like that. Or you do this with Pilates, or you do this with yoga. You start to become more in tune with the felt inner awareness. You don't do this on purpose. It's not like it's like you have no, we don't always put this together. But then I started working with saying, okay, let's really focus in on this and use breath work. So now I'm gonna zoom out a little bit before I get too nerdy with breath work, because I know a lot of the people listening to this probably are not familiar with what this is. But ultimately, when we talk about the language of breath, when we talk about where I am in this field, what I eventually later on discovered is much of the way we look at ourselves is filtered through metaphors that we use. And in our language, and of course, this is me being the language nerd, so you'll have to excuse me. I'm a recovering English professor and I'm just doing my best. But much of the way we look at the world is filtered through our language. And so one of the metaphors, and we use metaphors all the time. We use metaphors in every language that exists. Most of what we do is we speak in metaphors, and most of the words that exist at one time were metaphors, but we've just put them into a specific word that we now use, and we don't even realize that it's a metaphor for something else, which it just goes to show how entwined we are with metaphor. But oftentimes we will look at ourselves as, for instance, a machine, right? The human. We say, okay, you are a machine, you are a burrito eating machine or whatever. And I'm happy to claim some titles in that respect. But the thing is, we often will see ourselves like that, or we will see ourselves as this operator, of this machine that is you. And when we have a certain understanding of how things work, what we will do is we will base everything based off of that understanding. So you can come up with an enormous amount of really amazing ideas based off of a flawed premise, right? So in the book, I talk about bloodletting. The act of bloodletting is something here in the United States. We lost our first president, actually. I don't think I got to put that in the book. I don't know if I did. I forget. It's been a while since I wrote the book. But the point is, our first president, George Washington, if you look in the records, it says he died of a sore throat. Now, how the medicine of the time looked at the human organism was different than we look at ourselves now. And they said, okay, so because we know that humans are made of 4 liquids, bile and all these, we saw ourselves basically as the active, we saw ourselves it's humorism was the way we saw ourselves. So they drained him of blood to balance his humors so that his 4 liquids would be in balance. And so they said, yeah, the cause of death was a sore throat, but we did drain approximately, 30% of his blood. And we tried to save him, but even the best medicine of the time, we can't save him, right? And bloodletting makes perfect sense if you have a flawed premise that we are made of certain humors, and then one of the 4 humors was blood, right? So you got blood, you got what is it? It's bile and black bile, and it's just this crazy thing in our mind. But it dominated medicine for 2,500 years. And it still permeates our understanding of how we look at ourselves in many degrees now. But that made total sense if you have a flawed premise. So what I think we have a lot of times is a flawed premise. We see ourselves as a mind that drives around this body machine. We know that it's not that simple. And we always, there's so much about mind and body. We want to put these things together. And so what the language of breath does is I'm like, okay, let's just do that. And let's start to see ourselves as a whole organism. Your 37.2 trillion cells that are all working together to thrive and survive on planet Earth. Every mitochondria, there's intelligence in every cell. And we often will relegate it. No, the only place I have intelligence is my quote unquote, my mind. Now, and this gets a little nerdy, but the concept of mind as something that is a singular thing is also a flawed premise. We know, and we've known this for decades, that we have enormous amount of who you are and what you are is unconscious processes. But that's also where you get your sense of safety. That's where you get your sense of humor. It's how you do all of the functions that you don't think about. And only about 5% of your brain is actually conscious awareness and conscious thinking. The rest is unconscious. And it's great that it is, because it's an amazing team that we actually are. And so what the language of breath does is it basically brings us forward into another metaphor of seeing ourselves. We do have metaphor is very helpful, and maybe there'll be a better metaphor in the future, and I'll embrace that. But what I encourage people to do is see yourself as a team. See yourself as this conscious, unconscious team. And then if you're the Jesse of, teenage, 20s and many of my clients, a lot of different ages, we don't understand stress. We don't understand. I feel this way. And it feels like the world's caving in on me. And it's hard to believe it at first, but what that is, you're receiving a message from your teammate to take some kind of action. You're also receiving energy to take some kind of action, because we're organisms that are action-oriented organisms. So I often will talk about, and at our workshop, I often will start talking about how we're different than trees. You've got this amazing background, Chad. You're out in nature, and it's really, I'm kind of jealous at the moment, but a tree has a strategy for life that is unlike us, right? It stays in one place. And if things change, if there's no sunshine, if the rain doesn't, fall or anything like that, it will die. That's the end of its strategy. But it can live for hundreds of years in many cases based off of its strategy. That is literally that organism's strategy. Our organism is different, and every cell in you understands that, except for our conscious thinking self, because we are like, well, I'm a machine. A machine, you can sit a machine in a room for hours in a day and all these things, and it's not going to break down. Where our organism is an organism of action. So let's suppose, and how can this be something that the average person can relate to? Well, let's suppose that you have this deadline, or, somebody's being a total jerk at the office or something like that. And what happens is the unconscious part of you says, well, the game plan is always to take action. We always take physical action. If there's food over there, we go over there. If there's danger over here, we run the other way. That is our game plan. That is the way our organism works. So consciously, I might know, well, this person doesn't mean me any harm, or maybe I can't, even if the person does, even if the person hates me and is yelling at me or whatever, I can't take a physical action to make this stop. I can't. I mean, I could. You could beat the person up. You probably shouldn't, right? Or I could run away, and that's generally going to make it worse. But the unconscious you doesn't get that. The unconscious you wants to give you energy to do the thing that's what our organism does. And that is stress. So I forget the name of the guy off the top of my head where we get the term stress from. So the guy coined this, and English was not his first language. And he said later on, he would have coined it as strain, because what it really is, this feeling of stress that we come in contact with, that we just hate, is your unconscious giving you enough energy to take a physical action, and you can't. You're straining against the impulse to take a physical action, and then you're just sitting there suffering as a result. Now, the unconscious you loves you very much, and it is you. It's actually more you than the conscious you. And we can get into a talk. We're going to a brewery, I think, after our workshop, so we can talk about, do humans have free will? We can talk about that later. That's a brewery conversation, I think. That's one of those. Anyway, but the unconscious you loves you very much. So it's giving you that energy to take physical action. Now, I love coffee, And whenever I have my morning Joe, I will enjoy the feeling of caffeine, right? And oh, great, I have a little pep, right? But if you suddenly get that sensation and you don't know where it's coming from, then it's the boogeyman, right? Then it's, what is this thing? What is wrong with me? And I didn't realize there wasn't anything wrong with me this whole time. I didn't realize that my unconscious was trying to give me energy to take actions. My unconscious was trying to give me all the things that it felt that I needed in those times. And so with breath work, what we can do, and once we have a foundational understanding of what we are as an organism, what these things are, why, what are they that are actually happening? We can actually start to use breathing as a language to let your unconscious know that we're actually safe, that you're not under some kind of impending doom. I got to brag just a minute. I won a dance competition last week. I'm just gonna come out and say it right now. I don't ask me to dance at this thing. I'm not really, I enjoy it, but I'm not very good at it. But I was pretty nervous before the thing.
Jesse, you just screwed up, man. You can't give away, dude. You can't do that in front of Megan.
Yeah, Megan's got you, dude. You're done for.
Dude,
You're absolutely done for.
You can't.
I was very fortunate that my wife, I think my wife, we did this couples dance competition, and she pulled me through. I think more. I'm not going to take any credit.
I'll be your partner. You're hugging. There's so many things. And then, I mean, don't even get me started on the fact that you and Nick haven't met yet. Like your insatiable need for information. And then you're
yeah, man, the brewery is going to get wild.
I think these are my people. I think I have found my people.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. We're your tribe for sure.
I love this. Well, we will nerd out.
I can't. So, okay. How did your breath work won you the gold? Is that what we're going to say here?
That's where I was going with it. No. But ultimately, okay. So before the thing started, right? They had, I mean, I was pretty nervous. This is okay to do, by the way. So there's a lot of sadly enough, misinformation. And hey, you're in fitness. This is where misinformation loves to live, right? We love misinformation.
Absolutely.
We love to believe, how to make that belly fat go away. Well, just do this pill, or just do these whatever workouts. And we love it because we want it to be true. Well, there's a lot of misinformation about breath work, and hey, you'll never feel stress. No. The point is, the goal, at least, to language a breath. And I believe ultimately the thing that I can confidently say is that ultimately what we're trying to do is we're just trying to feel okay with the way that we feel. Mm-hmm. And if you can do that, if you can say, you know what, right now I know that a part of me is gearing up, and this is energy that a part of me is trying to get me to run away because maybe I don't feel like I see all these other dancers and maybe they've got better moves, and they did. They did. But the point is, maybe they've got, I don't know, I'm going to be in front of these people, I'm going to mess up and all these things. I want to run away. Okay, I acknowledge that is happening right now, but I need to let that part of me know, okay, it's going to be all right. I'm not going to be ostracized from the tribe. That's what a lot of that is, right? For a human being ostracized is worse than death, because we're very social. We need that. So there are social needs that we have. And so that's generally what it is, right? Stage fright is so, okay, I need to let myself know. Now I can think those things as much as I can, and I can intellectually try to do that, but that's not really going to work. I have to let myself know. And so what I did is what I advise everyone to do, with my clients or whomever, and everybody that comes to this workshop, you're going to get a lot of techniques that you do in the moment, including the ones that I did that in that moment. But ultimately, you have to learn how to send a message back. You're noticing something. Oh, I'm getting a message. Danger, right? Okay, I need to be aware of this. Or you can do what some people do. Okay, I'm getting this message. I'm going to drink. And nothing against drink. I'm going to have a beer at the brewery. But the point is, there's a lot of times we do things to try not to feel because we're too afraid. And if you really learn how to be a good team, because that's what you are a team. then you can start to go through life. And when those times happen, they're not the boogeyman. It's nothing that's wrong with you. It's just you working with you. And hey, we did a pretty good job. I let my wife take the trophy to her office to show it off. But basically, we have these things, and the more we the more we can make friends with ourselves. And that's what breathwork's all about. It's not about, I mean, there are amazing experiences we can have, and we're going to have those experiences. I work with athletes a lot of times. We can increase and improve your cardio, your respiratory system. You can help a person go for stronger for longer, is what I like to say. But at the end of the day, all of these goals have to deal with the fact that we are humans, and humans are going to have to deal with all these things on a regular, everyday basis. And we're always dealing with them. And so that is the beauty of learning, not just breathing techniques, because that's sometimes, and I'm looking at my people here. So you know how sometimes a person will not really understand the complexities of what you do, right? And they'll say, yeah, I had I work with a lot of different people, and I was working with some physical therapists, and they work with first responders. I do a lot of work with first responders. And they said, what's a breathing technique that will make this happen, basically, right? And I asked them, okay, so I know you don't mean this, but it's like me saying, I have my shoulder hurts. What should I do for that? Right? It's a more complex thing, right? And totally. so this is why it's important to, for instance, get a full day experience like what we're going to be doing. Because what we're going to do, I'm going to give you some lecture, and some of it will be things we talked about today, but it's going to go a little deeper as far as how this thing works, right? What is the mechanism? I don't like focusing only on mechanism, but we do need to understand what it is that we're interfacing with, how that thing works, and how we can work with it regularly to make it work really well for us. We're not fixing ourselves. We're just learning to live as this team. Then we're going to get into functional breath. And so this is something that most of us, and actually recently on YouTube, I did a video about how actually you remember Dr. Kellogg from the Kellogg's cornflakes, and the 1800s, they messed up breathing really bad. They had a huge misunderstanding on how breathing works. And we still have this to this day. For instance, when I was a high schooler, I would play basketball. I had a growth spurt in high school. And so I went to this tiny little high school, and they're like, Coomer, you're going to play basketball. And okay. But every time we ran out of breath, what did you do? You put your hands up here, right? The air's not down there. The air's up here, which is the worst thing you can do to catch your breath. But that's still the pervasive wisdom, and it's based off of a misunderstanding of our physiology. So we're going to talk about how to take a functional breath, how to use the muscles that you're supposed to use, in what order you're supposed to use them, so that you can take an optimal breath. And in doing so, for most people, we will have yes, Robin, did you see my video? So the Jesus thing, right?
She thought she was texting me because I'm like, there's background, Robin. Mute yourself.
Oh, I was responding to Megan. She said she could hear stuff in my background, and I was making a joke, and I said it was Jesus.
These are my
wasn't
people.
Very funny, but okay, sorry.
These are my people. You're making.
I know. I say that all the time, and I don't mean it in an irreverent way. Please continue.
No,
sorry.
You're hilarious. All right. Just a little irreverence goes a long way, though. So
and now I can't find where to see it again on my phone. Thanks a lot, Jesse.
Jesse, I have a metaphor for you based on the fact that she just said Jesus is even more perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like when you're saying, you saw talk about metaphors, and I feel like what you're talking about, like breath work, I feel like is a physical representation or manifestation of grace, like giving yourself grace mess up, to still be like okay with yourself once you do mess up, but also having like the, the cojones to move forward. But I just feel like you don't have the guts to go do the dance contest, to go get on the line and race the race. For me, my biggest moment ever was singing the national anthem at my own inauguration. Scary thing to do.
Well, that's awesome.
I know, but it's like, if I mess up, okay, I'm, and it's just like knowing you'll be okay. I feel like breath work gives you a physical way of getting grace going all over. Is that a metaphor?
I love that. I love that, because ultimately I believe that everything that's going to make you the happiest in life is something on the other side of that action, right? And, oftentimes in my life, the things that I wish I would have done, those are the things that bother me the most, right? It's like, man, I really wish I would have done that, but I didn't, and you can frame it, right? You're either brave enough to do it or you're brave enough to live with the regrets. But ultimately I like that, because, and I think this is also in our space, right? In the health and wellness space, there's a lot of talk about this is the thing that's going to make you happier. And in reality, it's a way to help you to either have the cojones. I love that. Use it. I'm trying to learn Spanish. So anytime we can, I'm happy. Basically, these are ways to engage with yourself, to put you in a better situation so you can take the actions that are going to bring you the happiness in life. So if a lot of people come to me and I tell them, I don't want you to sit there and do breath work all day. I want you to go out and live your life. Yes, there's going to be times during the day that I would highly recommend have a regimented routine. It's just like, Chad doesn't want you to, do the curls all day, right? But those are things. By the way, I'm going to have to get some tips. I'm working on it. But the point is, ultimately life is out there, right? And we intuitively, we know that, but we're afraid of the feeling in here. And it can get in the way of us taking those actions. And the thing is, it's so important. And even just knowing this without the breath work, but the breath work is ultimately, I love how you say it, being able to give ourselves grace. Just knowing that when you feel these things, right? Two things are really important. One is that it's not coming from outside of you. That is a part of you that loves you. That's a part of you that's trying to protect you, is trying to give you energy to do things that it believes that you need to do. And it's you. I mean, it literally is you. That is so important. And the other thing is that the way that you feel in this moment does not necessarily represent reality. Mm-hmm. And I think that if I would have known that, and I always tell people who come to me, they're like, hey, I'm writing a book, or I'm creating this thing. What advice would you give me? I'm very, very fortunate to, like, why are you coming to me? But I always tell people, everything I've ever created that has done well is because I wish it would have existed for me at some point. That's how you're going to speak to people in the best way, I think, because I was struggling with these things and that I didn't understand. If someone would have told me in this way, I think I would have been able to say, well, okay, so the way I feel right now isn't necessarily representative of reality. And our emotions will make it feel like it's going to be this way forever too. And it will affect how you think. It affects how you look at the world, but emotions are the most powerful signals of love for yourself too. And there's all sorts of research on how our emotional state in the moment will affect our actions, behaviors. And if we can start to become aware of that and say, okay, I want to use this intuitive part of myself. This is a very valuable thing for me, but I also have this other part of me that's rational. And using this team, yeah, I can sing the national anthem. So you sing and you dance. We're going to a brewery. Do they have karaoke? That's the next question.
Oh,
I bet we could get it just for that night.
Don't give her any ideas, Jess.
Oh boy. Hey, I'm all about it.
Can I ask you a question?
So, but before you grab it, he comes in on Friday. I do believe there's a place that I think does it on Fridays. I have to find out ahead of time. it will have our pre-meeting.
Oh my gosh.
That would be fun. Just really quickly,
Yeah, Robin.
how in the workshop, so just from our conversation before, I come at this from a place of necessity, struggling with my own mental health stuff, and then just a lot of shit that got thrown at my family during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
But how in your workshop, so we have that baseline person that's like, what the heck is I can't even say it, breath work.
Sure.
But then we have other people that, I'm thinking maybe the PT clientele or, more advanced clients of ours that are more interested in improving their VO2 max and all that stuff. So I'm just curious of like, how do you talk about it all? There's so much.
Well, that's one of the reasons why when I certify people, so whenever I train coaches to do what I do, that's one of the reasons why it takes 3 months. And we meet every single week. And then we also have an in-person, like we have 4 very full days. We're thinking about making it 5 or 6 days because there is so much that you can do. The beauty is you're working with the same stuff, right? So it's all sort of working with the same stuff. It's just, okay, now we have a different goal. How can we focus in on this different goal to get our clients so that they're at peak performance? 2 of my clients just are competitive jujitsu athletes. And one of the beauties of what I do is that athletes have terrible breathing. And so I get to come in and I get to say, listen, you are already insanely awesome. Or you wouldn't be, first of all, you wouldn't be paying me for this, right? And you're already at this high level. So these athletes generally come to me whenever they've already won a lot and they're looking for the edge. Guess what? Good news. Your breathing is terrible, right? So I get to give them this amazing news. And now I was doing a workshop for a martial arts group in Chicago, and there were some world champions there. There was absolutely amazing martial artists there. And they had, so what we're going to do, I'm going to show you, we'll do 2 major tests at this workshop that will give you an idea of where you stand. And these are easy, but objective tests where your breath mechanics, how they work. I'm going to show you guys how to look at each other's breath mechanics. So after this workshop, if you attend, you will be able to improve your breath mechanics. And the beauty is that once you understand how you're supposed to breathe, most people just don't know. Then you can start to be aware and you can practice it every day and you're going to fix your breath mechanics. The other test that we're going to do is your CO2 tolerance test. This is a test that there's a few different ways to do this, but the way that I do it, it lets me know a lot of things, how well you deal with stress, how resilient you are to stress, if you're in a state of constant anxiety, and then also how fast you're going to gas out. And so improving VO2 max, improving your ability to recover, those things, you can go really deep in with athletes. We're going to get a lot of that. In a workshop like this, what I'm going to give you is a foundational understanding of what we are and how breath interfaces. I'm going to show you how to improve your breath mechanics, which is there was research done 2 years ago, and they went to it was this very, very thorough paper. They went to all these college athletes, top level college athletes. 90% had dysfunctional breathing patterns. A dysfunctional breathing pattern does a few things. First of all, it's wasting an enormous amount of energy and it's not efficient, right? So there's just some basics there. But a person with a dysfunctional breathing pattern, and I had a terrible one, will actually be sending messages of stress into their system with every breath they take. And they generally breathe faster than the average person. So they're not only sending stress signals, they're sending a lot of them. And we see this in all athletes, but we see it in every walk of life. A person will be having dysfunctional breathing patterns. Breath mechanics are awful. And they just at the end of the day, the classic thing is at the end of the day, whenever they're supposed to go work out with you guys, they're exhausted. And all they did is sit at a desk.
Can I have a question to piggyback that? Like when I think of, well, we have a lot of teachers in our clientele. And if I had $1 for every time they mentioned the state of the mental wellness or unwellness of their students, it's wild. So is this something that can be simplified enough for a teacher who may come? I'm like wanting to send this out there to the district now and be like, I know they've got some stipends or whatnot. Can they simplify it enough for something that they can actually bring to their classroom in real time? And I'm talking about young ages too, because I feel like you need to start this stuff early. Like, can it be simplified enough, the workshop for them?
So our workshop will not be. Our workshop will be for, I mean, here's the thing. You know, as I'm very flexible and we can do whatever you'd like to do, but I do for a fact. So one of my certified breath workers in language of breath, he is a school counselor and he took what I teach and he's even done 1 year of research, and he worked with middle schoolers who were at risk, who had high anxiety, ADHD, a lot of issues that they needed coping mechanisms, coping skills. And he taught them some of the most foundational, just real basic stuff that we're going to be learning. Okay. And all outcomes were improved over the course of the school year. So this is something where, that's a qualitative test, and that's a great foundational start for this. But all ages should know this. And teaching to kids is different than teaching to adults.
Okay.
And the reason is because it's the same with fitness, right? So for instance, you have to make it into a game if you teach it with kids, or they have to be at a certain level of development that they understand, hey, I have a problem with this, right? And so, for instance, my son is 9 years old, and he has a lot of the same habits that I see. I'm like, oh, there it is again. There's a habit that I have had. And he really wants, he's extreme extrovert. He also has anxiety in social situations. And I see it and I know all the signs. And so we have been working on a children's book together, just because this is just my little way of teaching him. And he thinks when he grows up, like just everybody, daddies write books. And so, he's, but we're writing a book together. And ultimately it's just one technique. Right. So I'm going to teach you a lot of techniques in our workshop, and I'm going to teach a lot of the why, a lot of the science that, very few kids would really get too interested in, to be honest. But then some kids might love, I'm not saying my 9-year-old son, he would say, skip to the fun part, Dad.
Not to bring the kids, but could the adult teachers listen in, learn something and bring it into their classroom? Maybe they need a little work on it on their end to make it palatable. I don't know.
So we're going to learn a technique. One of the techniques we're going to learn is called sniff, sniff, poo. There is a more sciencey name for this technique, but I am a dad and I like dad jokes, and sniff, sniff, poo is one that I've taught my son. We're going to learn a few different techniques that are simply techniques you might use in those moments whenever you're kind of getting nervous, when you feel anxious, when you're feeling a little overwhelmed. Also, we also see, if you think about movement mechanics, right? So when we were 2 years old, 3 years old, we did a perfect squat, and then we all remember having to relearn that, right? And that's about the same time we start to develop dysfunctional breathing patterns. So when my son was baby and 1 or 2 years old, perfect diaphragmatic breath. I could just watch that and I was jealous because he did it without effort. And now he wants to do a chest breathing, and so now it's like, okay, so many of these, or all of these things, they're just human things, right? And so if you attend and you'd like to share these things with a child, all of them apply. There's nothing that we're going to talk about that is only for adults. So yeah, for sure. And then of course, we will get into, like, we will have a deep breathing session. That would be the one thing I would say is just for grownups. So some breath work can be, uh, we can enter into an altered state of consciousness, which is amazing and just a beautiful thing. Those things would not be for kids.
Breath work. It's absolutely like this in-between world that you enter. I remember Nick and I were next to each other doing a Wim Hof, and I remember like looking at him and he looked at me like we felt like we were on a trip together. It was like this weird in-between space that I think is so remarkably wild about breath work. Like I get excited to go into it. Like it's this, like it's I'm going somewhere.
Yeah. And we're going to be doing something a lot like that. And we're going to incorporate internal awareness and into it as well. And what I have found in my many years of doing this is that when we incorporate deep breathing sessions like this, we're going to have nice music. I mean, it is a blissful, amazing experience, but also we can get a lot of insights about how we really feel, and we can start to feel okay with those things as well. This is great for athletes. This is great for just anybody and everybody, because it's that mental health aspect that it helps us to break through anxiety, overthinking, rumination, and it brings us back into ourselves in a way that it's very difficult to do. I mean, I don't know how to do it intellectually. Sometimes you just have to speak the language of your physiology, and using breathing is the most powerful way I know to do that.
I love that. I love. So if you breathe, this is for you.
Yeah.
If you've ever suffered anxiety ever.
Right. If you have if you have red blood cells.
Right.
If
I love that. Like, people ask like, what's fitness for? What's my studio for? I'm like, well, if you have a body and if you want to move well in it, then come to us. Like, just like don't overcomplicate things.
Exactly. Exactly. I don't care who you are, or what it is that you want to do. You're going to have to do that, navigating your conscious and your unconscious, and learning about what that's all about and how it interfaces with every breath you take. You take 20,000 breaths a day.
Wow.
And every single one of those sends a message. It also receives a message. So you're always interfacing anyway. Why not learn how to do this in a purposeful way that can move you forward and closer to your goals?
All right. I feel warm and fuzzy on that line.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for this, Jesse. And I say that because we've done workshops in the past, right? And I know that breath work becomes very, I would say that there's a lot of misconceptions over breath work, exactly like you said, right?
Yeah.
And everybody that seems to be into breath work really more or less focuses on the technique and not so much the practical application. And that's really what I'm excited about for this. And I mean, you nailed it. I mean, it's what basically you just said is like, how do I breathe? Like, how do I get better with this certain thing that I'm doing? And that's not enough information for me to know, right? Like that's you nailed it, right? Like so many people are like, oh, I've got shoulder pain. What's the best exercise to do for my shoulder pain? It's like, I don't really have enough information to help you, man. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think like being able to go through the steps, and there is a level of, yes, you have to understand the breath work and then be able to apply it and then know what technique and what situation works the best for you. Because I feel that as humans, we're very self-sabotaging, right? Like you said, you know, we'll run away or we won't do something because of the fear of something, right?
Yep.
And if the breath work can help people kind of get over that anxiousness, you know, whether it's public speaking or whether it's, you know, hosting a workshop or, you know, teaching a class, right? I think a lot of these techniques can be very beneficial. I mean, I know, and especially for the athletes too, because like Hayden's big into like he's an Ironman guy, he's a marathon guy, like. I mean, that's like mental and physical stress. Like Nick's always grinding, you know, every single day, and he's got a new baby on the way, so he's dealing with those stresses.
Oh boy.
My. And then, you know, so it's like there's like so many different situations, right? That I feel like this could be very applicable. And I feel like our exposure has been limited to only maybe like one or two techniques that might not work for everybody, right? And actually might be worse. You know, it might actually create more anxiety. And so
Yeah,
that's
it's true.
that's what I am excited about. And I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of benefit out of this because I feel like it dives just a little bit deeper. And like you said, the language, that metaphor for breath is important because it's not just Wim Hof breathing is going to make your life, changed overnight, right?
Right.
Which I'm sure that most people will claim to fame, right? Because there's probably some sort of financial gain there, but it's more or less the being able to, yes, teach it, but also be able to utilize it with yourself and with like us as our athletes, or with Megan and Robin with their clients. You know what I mean? So I think this is going to be very beneficial. I'm stoked.
Yeah.
I'm
Everybody
super
that
excited.
Yeah.
I am too. And everyone who comes will get a copy of my book. So if you're like me and you forget half of the things that you learn, as soon as you walk out the door, hey, it happens. Everyone will get a copy of that book, and we'll be doing a book signing afterwards. And that's whenever it's just, hey, let's nerd out. But if you come to this workshop, you're going to leave with everything that you need to form your own practice. Yes, there's a lot more you can learn. There's a ton of complexity, but you'll be able to leave with a better understanding of what you are as a human being, how to interface with that, and you'll be breathing better because we're going to show you how.
And you might get some people who sign up to do your workshop.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, if you're interested in adding this as a modality to your coaching, whether you're a mindset coach, whether you're a personal trainer, a therapist, this is the tool that will set you apart, and it really unlocks an enormous amount of potential for your clients. We just finished our 3rd year of this certification. We have personal trainers, physical therapists, mental health professionals. Next year, actually, we've got our very first astrophysicist who's going to be certifying with us. So maybe, Robin, you can meet a French astrophysicist. I don't know why that feels like it makes it better, but it kind of does.
It does.
Right?
Items are, for people who are looking to sign up, my website, motivate-movement.com, motivate or dash, however you say it, go to the workshop tab, scroll down to September, and you're going to see it there. September 21st, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Jesse, that's the time frame?
I believe that's what we said. Yes.
So it's like a 4-hour workshop. So
Right.
You've got time for the why, the practice, the how. Okay. And then we're going to head over to a local brewery where we'll have the book signing, talking, all the fun stuff that happens afterwards, the dance contest, karaoke, whatever comes of it, we'll make it happen.
Sounds great. That sounds
That's
amazing.
awesome.
That morning, ProForm's got the fitness festival. If you got one,
That's right.
Exercise in first. So a
Yeah.
couple exercise classes, motivates taking part in that.
Yes,
That'll be down the road.
that's
So
right.
Nick, what do we got for that, Nick? We start bright and early at 8 a.m., right? We got
Start
8
right and
a.m.
early, 8 a.m. Hopefully Megan's doing the first one with Bar. Megan will take,
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 or 2 of the classes, or I'll have someone else jump in the second one. I'll teach.
and then another instructor from Motivate will likely be doing core buns and guns, if I'm correct.
Oh.
And then we
Nice.
finish up with a kin stretch class taught by Dr.
Yes.
Mike Lander.
Yes.
Yeah, so that'll be like pretty much take us right to the start time of the workshop, but we'll be done here at like 10, probably 10:30ish, and then Motivate's right down the road. So Hayden will run us over there, or you can drive.
Yeah, really.
And
I'll be driving.
I think September 21st is a really important day, is it not, for someone else on this call here?
I may be
I believe so.
turning 53
Oh,
big birthday.
that day?
that day.
Oh boy.
Megan has the
Jesse.
best birthday
I didn't
parties.
know, man. I didn't know.
The brewery
Happy
was
birthday.
turned into
Wild.
a 53rd birthday party.
That's the best kind of party.
That's
Yeah,
kind of
That's
how this
Oh,
is.
man.
Yeah. So I'm hoping
That's great.
everyone spread the word, join us. Seriously, guys, you gotta up-level your health, and there's no other way. But I'm calling it grace through breath work. That's my new.
I love it. I love it.
Well, and one big thing too, like at the end, like this, your the way you talk about breath work and creating conscious awareness around it is so huge. We talk about that with patients, clients all day about how they have to create conscious awareness. health is a journey. There's no finish line. Like you don't have an end. You have to continually work towards it. Same thing with the breath. Like you yourself have come a long way, like you said, but you can easily slide back into some of those.
I'm not done. I got to work on me until I'm done with life.
This workshop's big time for people that if they want to up level their health and continue on that for the rest of their life.
Amen 100%. For that.
Yeah,
love that.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I love it.
Yeah, I'll make sure to put all the links too, like with the podcast, as well as with any type of stuff that we put on social media and YouTube and all that, so that everybody will be able to sign up with ease. So that I'm stoked. Yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it, Jesse. It's gonna be fun, man.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to meeting you guys in person.
For sure.
And yeah, we're gonna have a great time. We're gonna feel great. You'll be breathing better, and yeah, I'm really excited.
Awesome.
Great. Awesome.
You're too.
Okay, I think that's it. I mean, do we want to mention anything else? Is there anything else you want to mention, Jesse? Or are we good? Yeah,
I appreciate being here. I'm looking forward to it. I will see you next month.
Next month.
Cool. All right.
Guys.
Good. See you guys.
Well.
Bye-bye.